Imagine you're looking at a math problem. So daunting. It just feels, well, completely broken. You've got one classroom, 150 kids, and a staggering 15 million teacher shortage across Sub-Saharan Africa. I mean, how do you even begin to solve that?
Yeah, you don't. Or at least not by building more schools or trying to hire more teachers.
Right, it's just a wall.
Exactly. It's a massive logistical wall. But today's deep dive is looking at someone who decided to climb it. We're unpacking a presentation from Joe Wolf, the co-CEO of Imagine Worldwide.
And he gave this talk to a Silicon Valley Rotary Club, right?
Yeah, and his solution involves offline solar-powered tablets stepping in to tackle this huge literacy and numeracy crisis.
And the urgency here is intense. I mean, right now, 89% of 10-year-olds in Sub-Saharan Africa cannot read a simple text.
Which is just staggering.
It really is.
Yeah.
And when you factor in that 42% of global youth will be African in the coming decade, you realize this crisis impacts the entire planet's future. But my first instinct is still just, hire more educators. Why is that such a dead end?
Well, it really comes down to basic economics. I mean, these nations are actually spending high percentages of their GDP on education.
Like globally high?
Yeah, some of the highest in the world, actually. The issue is just that their overall GDP is too low. So to bridge that 15 million teacher gap, you'd need an 80% increase in their education budgets.
Oh, wow. So that's just an economic impossibility.
Exactly. Human capital just cannot scale fast enough to meet the demand.
Okay, so if humans can't scale, the logical step is removing the human bottleneck entirely. But this is where I get stuck on the tech side.
How so?
Well, you're talking about dropping tech hardware into remote villages. There's no reliable grid power, no internet. Isn't that just a recipe for, highly expensive paperweights?
It would be if they relied on traditional infrastructure. But instead, schools get this completely self-contained ecosystem.
Okay.
They literally mount solar panels on the school roof, and those wire directly down to locked cabinets filled with lithium batteries.
So they charge overnight.
Yep. Sets of rugged tablets charge in those cabinets overnight. And by morning, you have a fully powered, completely offline learning lab. And it costs about $7 per child per year.
$7. That is incredible. Okay, so the power issue is solved. But how does the software work without Wi-Fi? And honestly, how does a kid who can't even read figure out how to use a tablet?
So they use this royalty-free software developed by an NGO called 1 Billion. And for your second question, the software is entirely autonomous.
Meaning it teaches them how to use it.
Right. It doesn't rely on text instructions at all. It uses intuitive visual icons and audio prompts in local languages like Chichewa and Kiswahili to actually guide the child.
That's brilliant.
Yeah, kids use them for about 30 to 60 minutes a day, and the software adapts in real time.
So it's basically like having a democratized coach, right? Just a patient, tireless tutor sitting shoulder to shoulder with a child.
That's a great way to put it.
Because it tracks every single tap on the screen to figure out exactly where they're getting stuck. And then it adjusts the lesson to meet them precisely at their proficiency level.
Precisely. And that actually brings up the human element, which is huge here. I mean, tech drops into resource-strapped areas usually fail because the local community rejects them.
Right. They feel imposed upon.
Exactly. But imagine worldwide partners directly with governments instead of building a competing system. And crucially, 97% of teachers actually love these tablets.
Wait, really? They don't see them as a threat to their jobs?
Not at all. They see them as desperately needed aids.
Okay, that makes perfect sense. I mean, if you're managing 150 kids, an automated tutor taking a third of the class off your hands is a literal lifeline.
A complete game changer. And looking at the data, the ripple effects are striking, especially for girls.
Oh yeah, I saw that in the presentation. Normally, a class might start with 60 girls in standard 1, which is like first grade. But by 6th grade, that number plummets to just 9.
Which is a massive loss of potential.
Truly. But with these tablets, the retention rates are completely shifting. Girls are persisting, staying in school, and they're frequently outperforming the boys.
It's amazing. And it's a perfect illustration of Clay Christensen's theory of areas of non-consumption.
Oh, right. Break that down for me real quick.
So in heavily resourced systems, if you try to introduce a radical new tech, the status quo fights back. Administrators, unions, parents, they resist the change.
Sure, because they have a system to protect.
Exactly. But in these areas of non-consumption, the current system is so overwhelmed that there is no entrenched status quo to resist it. The teachers and communities are just thirsty for something that works.
Wow. This really shows you how extreme constraints can breed these hyper-efficient leapfrog innovations. I mean, just like mobile phones skipped landlines in developing nations, these autonomous offline tablets are skipping the heavy infrastructure of centralized education entirely.
Which leaves you with a pretty compelling thought to chew on.
Oh, what's that?
Well, if autonomous offline technology can successfully teach foundational math and literacy to millions of kids in remote villages, could this self-directed learning model eventually disrupt traditional teacher-led classrooms in fully resourced countries? Like, could this be the future everywhere?
That is wild to think about. Could an innovation born out of zero Wi-Fi and 150 student classrooms eventually redefine how we teach kids right here in the West?
Yeah.
Talk about a paradigm shift to mull over.